Alex fighting back in Texas for the first time in a couple years. I guess what's the excitement level like for you? Is it a special night?
Yeah, it's always cool to fight in Texas, especially here in Dallas, because everyone thinks it's kind of like fighting in my home city, and it's not. Like Houston's my home. There's a little extra pressure. I pretty much only come up to Dallas to train at Fortis. So every time I'm driving up here, I'm like prepping for like the hardest session and fight camp until the next session in Dallas. So it's always a really like significant martial arts quest. And it's actually a really cool kind of cap to this fight camp to come back to Dallas to fight. So it's like not the pressure of the hometown, but like I have a very cool relationship and energy with the city in terms of it like always being the martial arts journey, and it's cool. Plus, my I'm the featured prelim, which is awesome. It's right before the main card, which I'm honored. But the fight's gonna be right around 8:30 sharp, and our hard sessions at Fortis are between 8 and 9. So like I'll be used to the hour and the time and everything. I'm really looking forward to Saturday.
That's pretty interesting because like Fortis is just around the corner, right? So I mean, like you see some of the visuals and stuff. Does it really start to like click in your mind, like okay, it's fight time or whatever? Like, is it really have an effect on you?
I mean, yeah, so there's that aspect of comfortability. Like, we drove up this morning from Houston, which was nice. So we have a car. I have Fortis to train at. So like the weight cut's going to be awesome. I'm somewhat familiar with the city. So we can go kind of explore around and have some fun. But it's nice. It's like all the perks of fighting in your hometown, but none of the pressure. So again, man, I can't wait to go fight on Saturday.
That said, not the hometown, but how many people are making the drive up from the academy? Have you been able to nail down how many tickets you sold?
Yeah, quite a few. I couldn't tell you, but there's a lot, man. That'll be fun. It's always nice. I got my family going as well. All the teammates, all the guys in the UFC they can usually get like in the fighters area too. So it'll be a fun one, man.
That's awesome. Matt as an opponent, I mean, he's had some decisions. He's had some incredibly quick wins as well. I guess, what do you think about him overall as an opponent?
Yeah, he's well rounded. He's physical. He got some power in his hands, and I've been in the fight game a long time, and you can kind of identify like character types, and he's like pretty respectful and quiet, and just like where he's from, the way he fights, I know that man works hard. So I got granted I would have worked hard no matter what in camp, but this camp was notably more challenging than previous camps, which says a lot because I've never like ill prepared, especially back before I really started doing this full time. I guess I've been doing it full time for a while. But if I was ever like not the more athletic or more physical guy, I was always more technical because I would never ever under prepare in fight camps, and this was the toughest one I can remember probably since being in the UFC. And it's nice because I'm coming in a fight week a bit lighter, I think because of the intensity in training. And it was cool because I had some teammates fighting on this card. They unfortunately had to pull, but if anything, that goes to show the intensity of the training. And then Jeff Neal's fighting next week against Vicente, so I got a lot of rounds in with him, and that's never easy. So it's been a good one, man. It's been tough.
It's funny because I feel like at this point in your career, you kind of embrace this, like, hey, I'm just enjoying myself. I'm happy to be here, but hey, 3-0 last year. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious, like, is that mindset helping you? And is there any point where that changes where you're like, oh, I know I said I wasn't really going to be a champion, but, all of a sudden I've got like 6 wins in a row. Like, let's talk about some rankings.
Yeah, hey, the win streak means I'm collecting all the win bonuses, which is awesome. And I'm 5 contracts deep now with the UFC. And I think I'm one of the few fighters who's actually cool with the fighter pay. Like, they're paying me good money. So much to where, like, when I don't win, and I haven't experienced that in a while, I don't plan on experiencing anytime soon, but it hurts my stomach not collecting that other half of the fight pay. So that's good incentive. But in MMA, winning is everything. It really is. And if you're not, training and preparing and fighting to do nothing but win, then you're going to be fighting at a disadvantage. So thankfully, Coach Safe understands the importance and necessity of winning. And I drive so much to train, and it needs to be all worthwhile. Come after the fight, make sure all the time spent away from the gym and away from the family was worth it. And plus, I had a loss, my last loss. I had to like kind of sit back and ask myself why I was doing this, and there was no hesitation. But like the one real meaning and purpose to fight was to feel the emotions, because it's a really intimate thing you have to go through personally, and just like the feeling is the coolest thing. But what happens is if you get too caught up in the emotions, you fight a little crazy. At least I'll fight a little crazy if I just go out there and swing for the fences. So on this one, I'm going to try to keep it super technical and naturally very aggressive and go from there. But it's been a really cool kind of journey the last few years. This is my 16th fight in the UFC. My goal was 10 fights, then it was 20 fights, now it's 30 fights. So I'm looking to put a double-digit winning streak together.
That's interesting. I was going to ask you kind of what the goal was moving forward, because I do feel like you're kind of motivated by different things than necessarily. So, are you wanting to fight again quickly, or is it names? I know at one point you were looking for legends. I mean, what is the move from here?
Yeah, I'll always take a legend. After this one, there's I know it's kind of cliche, but by no means am I looking past this fight. So I got one guy's name on my mind, and that's Matt. Looking to fight super hard Saturday. And then beyond that, as much as I love a full fight camp, it is pretty taxing. And I train all year round. And I don't do it to be the best. No, I do it because it's fun, and I enjoy training with my friends and prepping my teammates for fights. So, I'm going to put my name back in that short notice hat and hopefully just pick something up within a couple weeks next time. But, that's hard to prepare for, predict. So naturally, I'll just try to keep a similar schedule, fight 2 to 3 times a year and keep on trucking along.
Alex, over kind of going off of that, I think you have the same amount of UFC fights as Kamaru and Colby. You've been pretty active, obviously. So, like you said, camps are grueling. So, how have you been able to stay this active through all the hard injuries and the camps and everything like that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of personal factors that play into this, and durability, I've always said, has been one of the most important factors for MMA. I had some really good training partners and friends back in the day, and they were the most talented and skilled, but their bodies just couldn't hold up through not even the fights, but the fight camps. And I've been able to do, in 2015, before I got to the UFC, I think I fought 9 times that year. There was a boxing match, a kickboxing match, 2 sub-only jiu-jitsu matches, and 6 or 7 MMA fights. And I was able to take very little damage. So thankfully, naturally, I'm a durable guy. So that plays a big factor. And my wife has always told me, she's like, you need to stop training so hard out of fight camp. And I'm like, yeah, it's just too much fun. Plus, it allows for the short notice, call-ups. So I think durability is probably the best factor on that one.
And speaking of Matt, how much did you know about him before you got the offer?
Much like all my other fights, I had just seen all of his fights. I think there was one fight that I had missed. It was an early fight. I went back and watched it. But it was after he knocked out Nick Diaz's training partner. I think his name's Martin Saint, if I'm not mistaken. And the only reason I watched that fight so intently is because I track the roster and I track the fight cards like you wouldn't believe on Tapology. I don't know who runs the website, but that's the best MMA, record website ever. And I was like, how did this guy get signed to the UFC? So I did some research. My coach, Matt Wall, did some research. Turns out he was one of Nick Diaz's homies. And I don't know what kind of deal they had worked out, but he got to fight on that card. If I'm not mistaken, this is very unofficial detective work. But I was like, I watched that fight. I was like, he should get steamrolled by Matt, and sure enough, he did. But yeah, I've watched all of his fights, and after he I think fought his 3rd fight, I was like, I will probably end up tying up with him. Now, to be fair, if my goal is 30 fights in the UFC, I got 15 more. I couldn't imagine there's a welterweight I'm not going to cross paths with naturally, other than a teammate. So yeah, I was kind of prepared to fight this dude, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
So since you've done all this research, Matt is one of 2 UFC fighters that have sub 20-second knockouts. The other one's obviously Anthony Johnson. Is he that good, or is he just fighting to the level of his competition, like you said, against Martin in one of his previous fights?
I mean, yeah, he's done great with the fights he's got, and you can't take anything away from that. I believe that was a bit of an undermatched fight for him. And then his previous fight, Witt, he's pretty seasoned. But again, I watched the technical breakdown of that one, and I don't want to say too much about what we look for in fights, but that was a right place, right time punch. Good for that man. I've been trying my whole career to get those. So no, and everyone's like, he's got power in his hands. I'm like, I know he's got power in his hands, but who doesn't? In the UFC, if you're not dangerous with your boxing, then you don't belong in the UFC. So this has been a cool fight camp. I've been training with Jeff, who probably hits harder than any welterweight on the roster. So it's been a good one. It's been a fun one.
And I have to ask you about the title fight in your division next month. Who do you see taking that fight in the rematch between Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards?
Yeah, I've become a fan of Usman, especially since he started icing dudes with his boxing. And it seems like every good champ just gets really good at throwing hands, which is really cool. But Edwards, he's not an easy fight for anyone. Just stylistically, he's long. He's a pretty big welterweight. He's pretty long. And he wrestles well, and he fights well in the clinch, and he's got good ranged striking. I predict Usman wins that one by decision, but I don't think that's going to be a breeze of a fight by any means.
What do you make of Khamzat taking on Nate Diaz in Nate's last fight?
Yeah, again, I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. It's always fun to watch a Nate Diaz fight, and a lot of guys have asked me that. But you got to think, he's headlining a pay-per-view. I'm sure he's going to get pay-per-view points. So, I mean, if Nate's making a couple million, then awesome. I'd fight anyone for half that. and going there to win. And Nate's always game. But I just, I know guys like Khamzat, the crazy paced wrestling and just super control. I think that's going to be hard to stop. I doubt he'll sit there and trade with Nate, but it'd be nice to see Nate go out against a more favorable opponent, but money talks. And so, I mean, he's getting paid. So good for him.
Alex over here. As somebody that's fought Cowboy, what do you have to say about the legacy that he's going to leave behind in mixed martial arts?
Yeah, Cowboy's the man. Man, his fight against Lozon was such a perfect matchup. It was a bummer to see it fall out twice, and that's one of those things, book it a third time, which made sense. And then he got matched up with Miller, who is actually kind of my golden standard. Like, everyone asks, who I'd like to kind of follow in the footsteps of, and honestly, Jim Miller's career is a great option for longevity. And man, he's doing great. He's on a couple fight win streak. I know he knocked out that young up and coming guy before he fought Cowboy. He finished Cowboy with the guillotine. That was cool. But no, I mean, Cowboy's the kind of guy. He's kind of set the path for everybody, and he'll be super successful doing anything he does beyond the fight game. But I was just really happy to fight him. Maybe my favorite memory in the UFC was I had walked out first when I fought him. So I was waiting in the octagon, and then that classic Kid Rock Cowboy song came on. Like, he was walking out in his hat, and I was sitting there. I was like, oh, this is cool. And I was like, I need to get in the right mind frame because we're about to fight. And then sure enough, when he walked in the octagon, he was eyeballing me pretty good. And I was like, all right, we're about to scrap it out. So that was fun, but I just wish him the best and will always be a fan.
And speaking about the energy, what energy are you going to bring to the American Airlines Center? What's going to be your walkout song?
Yeah, it's Texas, and again, one thing that Coach and I have been working on is not getting like crazy reckless in the fights. And I was actually at Fortis one morning, and Guns N' Roses' "Sweet Child of Mine" came on, and I was sitting there, and like it kind of like calmed me down, and I was like, you know what? Everyone likes this song. I like this song, and it doesn't make me go crazy. If it was like really up to me, if I had no restrictions, I'd definitely walk out to some Amon Amarth, but that usually doesn't get the green light. So I went with some classic Guns N' Roses. So that'll be cool.
Why don't they get the green light?
I've had about 50-50 success on my death metal. So sometimes I'll walk out, like the fight will start and I'll hear it, and then sometimes I always give them a first choice and a second choice. But from what I hear, they don't like harsh vocals, and like I'm not gonna argue it. I get it.
It seems silly to me.
They had Hatebreed for the intro forever. We sing that song at the gym all the time.
So they don't allow death metal when you're walking out to prepare for a fist fight?
Correct. Not my rule. Cool. Hey, thanks, guys.